Welcome to the Scenario Podcast, your guide to mental health and well-being. Each episode, we uncover practical tools, discuss expert insights, and explore how supplements can transform your mental health journey. Get ready to learn, grow, and thrive with us.
So if you've ever stared at that dizzying wall of supplements.
Oh, it's overwhelming.
It really is. All promising to fix your mood, boost your brain, cure everything. And it's just clouded by marketing hype. But, and this is what we're getting into today, there's also some real, rigorous clinical science being done in that field.
That's the critical distinction we have to make. And our job today is to use the strongest research, we're talking randomized controlled trials, meta-analyses, to just cut through all that noise.
Okay.
Because when we talk about depression, we're really talking about so much more than just a low mood. The consensus in the literature is shifting.
How so?
It's being seen as a complex neurological and, this is crucial, a metabolic disorder.
And when you look at the symptoms, that complexity makes perfect sense. It's not just feeling sad.
No, not at all.
It's anhedonia, that inability to feel pleasure. It's cognitive slowdown. It's even distorted reward processing. And then you have the physical side.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Chronic inflammation, major disruptions in sleep and appetite. It really touches the entire physiological system.
Which explains why conventional treatments, antidepressants and therapy, they don't work for everyone, or at least not completely.
Precisely. And that treatment gap is what drives the scientific interest in supplements that can target the biological pathways that conventional meds often miss.
Things like inflammation or specific nutrient deficiencies.
Exactly. Or even mitochondrial function.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is pretty surgical. We are separating the supplements that are backed by gold standard evidence from the ones that are based on, let's say, promising but unproven speculation.
And it's so important to understand the why. Why are researchers even focused on these things? It's because they target these fundamental internal processes.
So we're talking about the basic machinery of the brain.
We are. Supporting neurotransmitter synthesis, mitochondrial energy, managing inflammation. The benefits seen in trials are real, but, this is the big but, only for specific compounds that have actually proven their case.
Which brings us right to the problem of proof. The literature is so clear on this. Choosing an unproven supplement isn't just a waste of money.
It can seriously delay effective treatment.
Exactly. So when we demand evidence, we have to start with the essentials. And first up has to be omega-3 fatty acids.
We're talking specifically about EPA and DHA. The mechanism here is, well, it's foundational. These fats are essential parts of our cell membranes.
Right.
They modulate membrane fluidity, which in turn affects how well serotonin receptors can signal. But most critically, they manage inflammatory signaling.
Okay, let's stop right there. The inflammation and depression connection. What are these inflammatory signals you're talking about?
So think of inflammation as the body's emergency alarm. When it gets stuck on, when it becomes chronic, it releases these chemical messengers called cytokines. High levels of certain pro-inflammatory cytokines, like IL-6, for example, are consistently linked to how severe a person's depression is. And omega-3s, specifically EPA, help to dampen that alarm system.
This is where it gets really interesting for me because not all fish oil is the same. You can't just grab any bottle off the shelf and expect results, can you?
Absolutely not. That is one of the most common mistakes. The evidence is strongest, and I mean statistically significant, clinical improvement, strongest for EPA-dominant formulations.
EPA dominant. Why? What's the difference?
Well, because it's the EPA that primarily downregulates those inflammatory cytokines. DHA is more for brain structure, which is important, but EPA is the powerful anti-inflammatory agent here.
So what's the therapeutic key then? What's the dose we're looking for?
Dosing matters profoundly. You need an EPA intake of at least 1 gram daily.
A full gram.
A full gram. And the formulation has to have more EPA than DHA. The trials that use DHA-heavy formulas or, doses below that minimum.
They show nothing.
Generally, they show no benefit.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads to all the confusion in the market. The sweet spot is pairing that high-dose EPA with an antidepressant in moderate depression, especially for people who show signs of high inflammation.
That is a huge distinction, treating it like medicine.
It is.
Okay, let's move to another foundational piece, vitamin D.
Vitamin D is one of the few nutraceuticals with just consistently strong evidence, and it really shouldn't be a surprise.
Why not?
Because we have receptors for vitamin D all throughout the brain. It's actively modulating dopamine and serotonin pathways, and it plays a huge role in the immune and inflammatory response.
And the correlation, you can't really ignore it, can you?
You can't. Low circulating vitamin D correlates strongly and consistently with depression severity, especially in the winter.
Right.
And supplementation significantly improves symptoms, especially in people with a documented deficiency. But here's what often surprises people.
What's that?
The data suggests that for mild to moderate depression, vitamin D supplementation often performs as well as standard antidepressants.
As well as, wow, that's powerful.
It's truly foundational to brain health.
Okay, that is powerful data. Now, let's talk about some compounds that are sort of moving out of the supplement aisle and into mainstream psychiatric guidelines, starting with folate.
Or more specifically, methylfolate.
Right.
See, folate is critical. It's a necessary cofactor for methylation, which is the process that essentially builds neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. But there's a genetic complication.
Tell us about that genetic piece, because this is where methylfolate becomes, well, non-negotiable for some people.
Right. So a lot of people, some estimates are up to 40% of the population have a common gene variation. It's called an MTHFR polymorphism.
A glitch, basically.
It's basically a glitch in the metabolic pathway that prevents the body from properly converting standard folic acid into its active, usable form, which is L-methylfolate.
So if you have this gene variant, you could be taking regular folate all day long, and your brain just isn't getting the fuel it needs.
You can't use it. Methylfolate bypasses that glitch entirely.
Hey.
And because of this, and just the overwhelming clinical data, this is not fringe science anymore. Methylfolate is recognized in many psychiatric guidelines as a legitimate adjunctive treatment.
So it helps SSRIs work better?
It enhances their effect, yes, and it's a key strategy for tackling treatment resistance.
Let's move to an older but proven player. Same, S-adenosine. This has been around for decades.
Same as a workhorse. It's a naturally occurring molecule in the body that helps drive all these methylation reactions. It supports dopamine synthesis, and it's a precursor to glutathione, the body's master antioxidant.
And clinically?
Clinically, it consistently performs better than placebo. And it frequently performs as well as, or even better than, prescription antidepressants. It's especially good at enhancing response in those really tough treatment-resistant cases.
That sounds almost too good to be true. But I do remember a pretty important clinical note about its effect on anxiety.
That is an essential caution,
Yeah.
yes. Because SAN is so involved in dopamine and noradrenaline pathways, it is metabolically stimulating.
So if you're already anxious,
If you're already struggling with high agitation or panic, that stimulating effect can be counterproductive. It's a tool best used for people whose symptoms are more about low energy, sluggishness, anhedonia, not high anxiety.
got it. Okay, now for what I think is the real surprise of this section. Saffron. I mean, most people just think of it as a really expensive spice.
They do, but the clinical data for saffron is just extraordinary. It doesn't get the headlines because you can't patent it like a drug.
So what's the mechanism?
It's dual-pronged. It affects serotonin reuptake, a bit like an SSRI, but it also has this profound antioxidant and anti-inflammatory activity.
So when you compare it, head to head with pharmaceuticals, what does the research actually say about how effective it is?
This is the finding that should make everyone pay attention. Large network meta-analyses show that saffron extract, properly standardized and dosed, of course matches, or in some cases exceeds, the effectiveness of standard antidepressants.
Exceeds?
In moderate to severe depression, yes. And all while carrying a remarkably lower side effect profile.
So if we're just looking at the core evidence, that puts saffron right up there with high-dose EPA and methylfolate as a truly evidence-based option.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
That's a game changer for people seeking alternatives or trying to boost their current treatment. It proves that efficacy doesn't always correlate with marketing dollars.
Okay, let's shift focus. Let's talk about targeted support and some supplements that are maybe still developing their evidence base. The gut-brain axis, probiotics, very popular topic.
The theory is completely valid. We know our gut microbes influence mood, they produce neurotransmitters, they modulate the immune system, they talk to the brain through the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
But when we look for the clinical proof, the evidence is still pretty mixed.
Why the discrepancy? If the theory is so strong, why are the results often kind of underwhelming?
Well, many of the studies are underpowered, and the formulations they test are just wildly different. We don't have a consensus yet on the perfect psychobiotic strain or the right dose.
So the jury's still out.
For now, the best data shows only mild improvements, mainly in people who already have underlying issues like IBS. It's a supportive tool, for sure, but anyone claiming it's a primary treatment for major depression is just overstating the current data.
Understood. Okay, what about two targeted supplements for treatment resistance for when other things have failed? NAC and magnesium.
Let's start with NAC, N-acetylcysteine. This targets a very specific pathway, glutamate signaling.
Glutamate.
You can think of glutamate as the brain's accelerator pedal. In treatment-resistant depression, that system becomes dysfunctional. It leads to what's called excitotoxicity, stress on the neurons.
So what does NAC do to fix that?
NAC helps bring that glutamate signaling back into balance. It acts as a modulator. It also reduces oxidative stress and replenishes glutathione. It's effective,
But
but it works best in the toughest cases, and crucially, it is not fast-acting. You need patience for the effects to build up over time.
and magnesium. I feel like everyone takes magnesium for something.
Magnesium is fundamental because of its role in regulating the NMDA receptor, which is another key part of the stress response. Low magnesium just heightens your sensitivity to stress and anxiety.
So the effects are real.
They're modest, but they're clinically real, especially if someone is deficient. And if you're supplementing for mood, you want to opt for the highly bioavailable forms like magnesium glycinate or L-threonate. They get into the brain more effectively.
Okay, we have to talk about the major cautionary tale now. St. John's wort. It has strong data, but it also carries some really severe risks.
The data is strong, you're right. It is comparable to SSRIs for mild to moderate depression. It works, but the safety warning is absolute.
What is it?
This herb is a potent inducer of liver enzymes, which means it dangerously speeds up the metabolism of many other prescription medications.
You know, things like...
Everything from anti-seizure meds to birth control to anti-clotting drugs. It can make them less effective or completely ineffective.
So if you're taking any other prescription drug at all, this supplement is just off the table, unless you're under very strict medical supervision.
Precisely. The risk of destabilizing a crucial life-saving medication is just not worth the benefit you might get over a safer compound like Saffron.
Right. And just to round things out, what about some of the milder adaptogens or herbal options?
We have things like rhodiola, which is an excellent adaptogen.
Yeah.
It's a mild stimulant, really useful for fatigue and stress-related low mood, often better tolerated than prescription stimulants.
Then for anxiety.
For anxiety and milder symptoms. Things like lavender, chamomile, and lemon balm are wonderful. They soothe the nervous system, but they lack the power and the mechanism to really tackle major depressive disorder on their own. They manage symptoms, not the core dysfunction.
Okay, let's transition to safety and how you actually integrate this stuff. If the data for saffron, EPA, and methylfolate is so good, the natural question is, why not just replace my antidepressant?
And that's a great question. In cases of major depression, the data supports these compounds as powerful adjuncts. They enhance and complement existing treatments, they make them work better, or they target pathways the drug might miss.
But not replacements.
Not reliable replacements for severe illness, no. Now, in mild to moderate cases, a clinician might guide someone to use a selection of these alone, but that professional guidance is mandatory.
And that consultation is crucial, not just because of the interaction risks, like with St. John's wort, but to actually understand your own biology.
That's the key. A clinician can run blood tests to identify genuine deficiencies, vitamin D, certain B vitamins, magnesium. That lets you tailor a safe, evidence-based plan rather than just guessing in an aisle.
And quality control matters here a lot.
A lot. The supplement industry is loosely regulated. You have to opt for reputable brands with clear labeling and third-party testing to make sure you're actually getting the dose and the purity that was used in the clinical trials.
And just like with traditional medications, you have to be patient.
Absolutely. Don't expect immediate results. These things typically require 4 to 8 weeks of consistent daily use to show measurable effects. That timeline is very similar to prescription antidepressants.
So if we pull all this together, summarize the strongest science we've talked about today, what's the core message you want people to take away?
The core message is integration. The strongest evidence shows that success comes from treating the whole system. These supplements work best as part of a complete strategy-structured therapy, rigorous sleep management, inflammation control, and appropriate medication when it's necessary.
And the top tier of evidence-based tools are?
Based on the current rigorous evidence, the most effective tools in the nutraceutical arsenal are EPA-dominant omega-3s, vitamin D, SAME, methylfolate, and saffron.
That list and the really strong clinical data behind it is definitely the most surprising takeaway for me from this deep dive. It elevates these options from just, hopeful additions into genuine data-backed tools with significant effects.
And that leads us to a final thought for you to consider. If depression is fundamentally a neurological, metabolic, and inflammatory disorder, as the sources overwhelmingly suggest, how does that shift the focus of our treatment?
Away from just managing neurotransmitters in isolation.
Exactly, and toward integrating whole-body metabolic health strategies. This perspective suggests that effective mental health care is becoming inseparable from optimizing your physical biological health.
Something to mull over until next time. Thanks for joining us for the deep dive.
Thanks for tuning in to the Scenario Podcast. Don't forget to visit scenario.com for more expert tips, articles, and supplements designed to support your mental health. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to subscribe and share it with a friend. Until next time, take care of yourself.